Welcome to the MBN Solutions UK Data Salary Survey 2022 podcast. My name is Robin Huggins. I'm Client Services Director for MBN Solutions, a recruitment, talent advisory and people solutions business based in Glasgow, Scotland. We specialise in solving talent problems in the data space, and our recently published salary survey was augmented by some research around four main topic areas that we, our clients and our community regard as crucial to the attraction of niche talent, such as data analysts, data scientists and data engineers. In each episode of the podcast, we'll take a deeper dive into one of these topics, with a special guest providing their input based on the background and experience in the data space. This episode, our topic is the importance of purpose in work. Our research has found that over the last few years, data professionals have increasingly started to think about why they do the jobs that they do. If they can do any job that they want for any company that they choose almost anywhere in the world, why stay at the one they are currently in? Or what could potentially tempt them to look elsewhere? Joining me to discuss this topic is Dawn Burrows, co-founder and chief operating officer of Engine B. Dawn, welcome. Conscious that you and I know each other, have done for quite some time, but some of the viewers and listeners may not. Could you tell us a bit about yourself?
Of course. Hi, everybody. My name is Dawn Burrows. I'm co-founder of Engine B and currently chief operating officer there. Engine B is a tech startup that we founded, my co-founder and I, nearly 3 years ago, which seems crazy. We're a data and AI business building audit and accounting technology to help to streamline data integration and to drive and improve efficiency within professional services broadly, but really at the moment focusing specifically on audit. My role as co is pretty varied. I take to do with most things in the company apart from anything to do with sales. So operations, finances, contracting, so everything to do with recruitment and all the sort of people issues that go with that. And I have to say that's probably one of the most challenging and also most rewarding aspects of the role. This isn't, I guess, what I set out to do. I'm not really too sure what I did set out to do. Probably like most people, I went to university.
Many of us.
Yeah, it came out of the other end of that and landed in procurement of all things. And I actually started working in Glasgow for a local manufacturing business, and I had a great boss there who sort of took me under his wing. I started off temping after uni and ended up training under him as a junior buyer, and from there spent about 7 or 8 years working in procurement and industry. So I moved from Glasgow down to London, which was meant to be for a year, and I stayed for 17. And met my other half and had a baby and all that good stuff. But after leaving industry, after about 7 years, I moved into one of the big four professional services firms, and I spent 14 years working there. So my role there was really started off as procurement, but quickly morphed into operational transformation and helping client organizations to drive and deliver large-scale transformation projects. So I did lots of really interesting things and traveled the world and worked crazy hours and worked all that time, had a baby, came back from there and was like, Jesus, I need to be at home now. So I stayed with the firm, which and I guess in a big company, in a big organization, there's always lots of opportunity. And so I started to focus on driving and improving internal transformation within the firm, and landed with my co-founder. We sort of moved into various roles and morphed around the organization together. But latterly, we started to work within the sort of digital transformation and AI area, which was fast becoming clear that we had to do something about it, but nobody really knew what that meant. So for a big accounting or professional services firm, really, how do you embrace digital technology? And so we started to look at it from the client angle and also from the organizational angle to understand where was where was the rub and where were things not going quite correct. And it became quite clear, I think, as we moved around the organization, and this was sort of started in the UK, but we also were spanning into some work in the US as well, that actually data access and data integration and being able to source data and clean data to be able to use it properly was one of the big areas of the rub. And it wasn't just within our firm. We knew from talking to other sort of competitors and, you know, other organizations, that data access and data integration was a huge issue. So that's really where the idea for Engine B came from. And it was quite clear that whilst we could have stayed there and done it in one firm, really to create a more open, level playing field, you know, the accounting industry and specifically has had a lot of bad press over the last few years. You know, there's been big issues with audit quality, you know, there's been issues with public trust in audit and what accountants are doing. So really, if we could create one platform, you know, one way that an audit firm can go in and extract the client data, map it to a common data model, which before we were here didn't actually exist, which seems crazy. Every audit firm is asking for data in a different way. If we could actually ingest that data into that common format, clean it up, the auditor could go off and do all the value add stuff above it. So that's really the idea. And we, with the blessing of the firm, we left, and that's where we set up Engine B. So that was the idea. It sort of morphed in one area, quickly realized that it had to be bigger than just one audit firm, and that was us. Okay. So from an audit perspective, it's probably, I mean, it's as cool as audit data can get, because we're doing things in a way that no one else is doing them. You know, we open source most of our, well, our data model, for example, is totally open sourced. We don't think that that's where the value lies, you know, in actually being able to get the data out. The value for the auditor or for the professional services firm lies in what they do with that data. So we give them the tools to be able to do that, rather than saying the data itself is the IP in there.
Nice. Okay. Big meaty question to get us started. Well, it's a question in two parts. What is your purpose and how did you find it?
Okay, so I mean, let's start with the first part. So my purpose is really to create and develop a high-performing team. And I think being able to surround yourself with smart, motivated, talented people, everybody pulling in the same direction to deliver on, you know, the one vision, and being able to, you know, for us, that vision is to open up and to digitize professional services. You know, we don't want a closed arena. We want it to be open. We want new players to come into the market. So that's sort of the company purpose. And I'm really driven personally by the people aspects of that.
Right.
Harboring the potential that are that's in individuals. And I think that's been really a consolidation of previous experience. I've worked in lots of different teams. You know, my background in professional services meant that every engagement I worked with a different team. So you constantly are gelling with new people, sometimes not gelling with them, which is okay. You know, conflict is actually good in a way, as long as it's managed and it's healthy. But also you learn an awful lot working with different people. So people from different backgrounds, from different cultures, you know, all of that stuff. So I think all of that helps to shape you as an individual. And I guess that for me has really helped me to realize that the sum of the parts is a lot more powerful than the individual on their own. And so I believe that, you know, when teams of people have got the same vision, the same goals, they can achieve anything that they set out to do.
Thinking now to the establishment of Engine B, is defining a why critical before establishing a business?
I think it is. I actually think it definitely is. I think if you don't have the why, you'll be always flip-flopping. You know, you'll be pulled in other directions, you'll be distracted by other things. And, you know, I've gone through this startup journey, which it's very, very, very easy to be distracted by the next big thing or a great idea over here, or, you know, it's actually pretty constant, and you have to really stay the course and really keep yourself focused, because before you know it, you're off in one direction, you're off on a tangent, you've taken your eye off the ball over here. So you need to be always bringing yourself back, you know, back on stream. And I think the why could be something really, really broad. You know, it could be something that says, we need to have a way of cleanly powering all the homes in the UK, you know, because the net zero targets are now 2025 instead of 2030 or whatever. But also, I think if you can identify the narrow problem that you're trying to solve, then that's often the pain point for a customer or an organization. So then it becomes much easier to define the why from there. So for Engine B, we identified early on, as I've mentioned, you know, data access was the pain point for everybody. So if we could make it standard, repeatable, you know, we'd facilitate the opening up of the industry, and that became our why. And so when we've recruited people into the organization, one of the first things that Seamus and I did when we started out was we wrote the employee handbook. So we defined what our purpose is, we defined the vision, and that became the sort of, we interview, we're still the size where we interview personally everybody that comes into the organisation, and we talk to them about the purpose, and we talk to them about, why we set it up, and we talk to them about the challenge that we're trying to face. And I think if we didn't have that, I think it would be really, really difficult to keep everybody on that track, because they would be off on doing different things. So we can always pull them back. We've got an anchor in the centre.
Thinking here, the supplementary to this one is that thinking for people who are maybe thinking about the journey, or thinking about taking the journey that you've been going through over the last few years. Is your personal purpose the same as your business purpose? And does it have to be?
I think it's really difficult to separate personally. I think my business purpose is really shaped by me as a person. So that's my ethics, it's my background, it's where I come from, it's the values that I hold dear, it's how I behave, and it's how I treat others. And that, I hope, comes through in a business sense as well. So I always have the old mantra, treat other people as you would expect to be treated yourself. And I don't think one comes without the other. So I think if you've got a strong personal purpose, that's naturally going to flow through. I think if you didn't have that, it's probably you've not got the same business purpose. But I guess that's just my personal opinion.
Thank you. You spoke earlier about that people element. You mentioned still being involved in the recruitment process. You spoke about that employee handbook. How aligned to the organisation's purpose do you believe employees have to be in general?
I think it's really critical. I mean, I keep saying everything's critical, but I do think, I fundamentally believe that if people understand why you're there, and they really believe it. We talk about drinking the Kool-Aid. If they believe what we're trying to do, and what Seamus and I have got at the heart of Engine B, and they embrace that, if they will take that on board, and that starts to become their purpose, and then we're all pulling together in that same direction. I think everybody, there's always going to be some friction points. You'll always going to have some people, and I'm not saying everybody, it's like plain sailing and there's no conflict, and there's that healthy challenge, and I think that's really important. But I think it needs to be channeled properly, and I think that ultimately, when you do have people that challenge, because I'm not saying we've got all the answers, and we've refined some things, and we take on board, we go, actually maybe, let's do a bit more of that, and let's do a bit less of that. And all of it at the end of the day for us is we've got to be client focused. So we listen to what the clients are telling us, and we bring that back into the organisation. We're not changing the purpose of the organisation, but we're tweaking, I guess, and improving what we actually do.
Do you feel a difference now that you are a business owner rather than an employee?
Massively.
Right.
Massively. I don't know what I thought I would feel, to be honest. I hadn't really thought about it. It just, I've always been an employee, and I suppose when I started out, I probably didn't realise the gravity of the responsibility of actually running a business and employing people. It's really important that we make money, because it's really important that I can pay everybody every month, and that everybody can pay their mortgage. And you do feel that personal sense of responsibility, which I'm not sure, I just hadn't thought about it. I'm not saying I'm not belittling it in any way, because it's as a business owner, and anybody who else is, they'll know you've got a constant knot. There's always something lurking there. You're always worried about something. You never totally relax. I think I've got a really big responsibility, to help people grow. So it's about making sure that people are challenged in the role that they do, that they can see a career path. There's an opportunity to develop, and for them to progress through the organisation. And I think from a client and a customer perspective, it's also changed my perspective now that I feel much more part of their team, and helping them to solve their problem. And I think when I was an employee, particularly working in management consulting, you learn quite quickly that you're never the decision maker, that you can influence and you can advise, but it's up to them whether or not they do it. And so that was a big change when I moved from industry into consulting. That was the big switch for me, was like, oh, I don't make the decision anymore. I can advise on the decision, but I don't make the decision. You come back to owning your own business and running your own business, and you actually realize that it's my responsibility to help clients to make, the right decision. And they look to me for advice and whatever it is. So, you know, there's a definite shift, and it's it's been eye-opening at times.
Back to the people that work within the organisation, how have you looked for purpose in the individuals that you've hired? And how important is it when you make hiring decisions?
I mean, we've had a really strange growth because we formed in August 2019 and then the pandemic hit. So, I mean, you'll know this as well, you know, from the work we've done with MBN, but, you know, the majority of our recruitment, and probably, I mean, I can't think of anybody who I've not done that, maybe one or two people right at the very start that we recruited and met them. Everybody's been recruited virtually via Teams. So it's been more difficult to make those personal connections and to understand how somebody might fit into a team and really what drives them. So for Seamus and I, it's really important that, you know, we have interviewed everybody that we've recruited, because we can then, I'm not saying we've got a set formula, but we sort of can bounce off each other, and we can get to try to understand how that person is. And we talk to them about our purpose, and we highlight how important it is for us and it's shaping the business, and we take their feedback on this. And I think that conversation and that dialogue, we can quite quickly gauge whether we think they're aligned. I'm not saying that they immediately get it, but I mean, you get a feel for somebody aligned to the purpose and whether they're right for the team. And it's not always been 100% successful. You know, you don't always make the right decisions, but I think it's important for us that we share that with people right from the outset, because I think if people came into the organisation and they didn't believe it, and they didn't believe us, more importantly, and it's about us being true to ourselves, and, you know, people really thinking, yeah, these two are genuine, I think there's a lot better chance of people fitting in, because it is a really difficult environment, you know, managing everybody on a virtual basis.
Is there a common shared purpose throughout your organisation, or a series of purposes, different departments, different teams?
No, I mean, I think we've got a common purpose, which, you know, is to open up the professional services industry and to, you know, make it more transparent and increase competition. So I think everybody's got that at the heart. And so I think we articulate that on role descriptions. You know, it's there from the outset. We talk about, you know, what we're setting out to do, you know, who we are as individuals. And right in the early days, you know, we would send a copy of the staff handbook out to people that we were in, you know, after interviewing them, as we were making an offer, we'd start to share with them.
I remember that
exactly.
very clearly from our first conversations, and that definition of the purpose. It was very clear even way back then.
Just remember that we don't do that anymore. I'm thinking, why do we not do that anymore? But I think because we've sort of professionalised a bit more, you know, we've got an HR system and all the policies are in there, so we don't need to have a staff handbook. So things have evolved and we've become a little bit more grown up. But I think still at the heart of it, you know, we do have that shared purpose. I think individuals will have their own personal purpose, and I'm not saying everybody is like clones of me or Seamus, but I think that we don't have a tech team purpose, we don't have a sales team purpose, we don't have a marketing, you know, everybody's pulling in the same direction, because ultimately our purpose is to serve clients. And for clients, it's to make their life easier, it's to make audit more efficient, it's to make it higher quality, it's to allow new technology providers to come in and build new services. So, you know, all of it's pulling in that direction.
You mentioned the pandemic, and it would be remiss not to spend a bit of time talking about it. Have the events of the last 2 years caused any significant reflections on purpose in yourself or in the organisation as a whole?
I don't think that they have, actually. I mean, I think that we're focused on how we treat others within our team, how we service the industry, and I think how we all behave and take accountability for all that we do. You know, that's a value, and that's a purpose that everybody should be having before the pandemic, you know, as equally as, I was going to say after, but it still is the pandemic. During the pandemic, you sort of never think we're over. I don't think we're over. We're still in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think as a business, I mean, we've been really lucky. We've been lucky that we've been able to carry on, just, you know, being here and doing what we do and building and growing, because a lot of companies haven't. So we don't take that lightly, because I think everybody's, you know, it's been a tough time for everybody.
Yes, it has. You spoke about you and Seamus still having the advantage of meeting people in their journey, perhaps to joining the organisation. And you spoke about that staff handbook, and you spoke about that clearly defined purpose. It's became more and more prevalent in the conversations that we hear as an organisation, that purpose is critically important when organisations are trying to hire niche talent. So how do you present your organisational purpose to potential employees in terms of talent magnetism? How do you, air quotes, sell it?
I mean, I've already alluded to the fact that we put it out there right from the start. You know, it's in our role descriptions. You know, when we talk, recruiters are talking to potential candidates, we make sure that they understand that that's really important to us, and it's there right from the outset. And as I say, that sort of normally final interview stage, Seamus and I do, it's always a core part of the discussion. You know, it's always, I think we're just quite keen to make sure that people believe, not just believe us, but believe in us. You know, this isn't just words on a page for us. We actually really do live and breathe it. And there's times we've had to make decisions on, you know, certain things, and we're like, that just doesn't fit with us, doesn't fit with our purpose. It's, you know, we're not out to just, I was going to say make a fast buck. We are obviously, but you know what I mean. We're not out, you know, everything that we do needs to pull towards that ultimate purpose and vision that we have for the business. And it's not about cutting corners, and it might take us slightly longer to do it, but we've got to be really true to ourselves. And I think that in terms of selling it, I don't know that we have to sell it. I think if we're, you know, if we just are who we are, I think it probably comes across as believable. And we've actually, you know, we do get feedback that, you know, even people who've decided not to take a role with us have fed back, oh, you know, we really enjoyed meeting you both, and, you know, we really understand the purpose of the business, and we understand what you're trying to do. It's maybe just not been the right thing for them. So I don't think I think that there's a sell, always a sell, because when you're interviewing anybody and trying to recruit, you're always selling your organisation. It's got to be two-way. And I think if you don't do that, you're being really arrogant. But I don't think it's not a hard sell. I think it's the try, you know, it's about being believable, and it's about being honest and who you are.
Authenticity in itself can sometimes be a fantastic sell. Just people just being who they are throughout a selection process can sometimes attract like-minded kindred spirits. It's a great thing. Last couple of questions, and it's time to firstly gaze into the crystal ball. Future purpose. Dawn, what do you see, if anything, coming over the horizon in terms of the importance of purpose in work?
It's probably becoming more important. I mean, I think that the what's the word for it? The battle for talent, or was a phrase for it?
The war for talent, the battle for talent. One of using these words that imply.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, I mean, it's more and more difficult, and everybody's chasing the same people. And I think the pandemic's proven that the world's a smaller place, you know, so everybody's trying to compete, you know, for the same talent, because it's not always as necessary that, you know, location is the big driving factor anymore. So I think leaders who are genuine, who are authentic, and I think who do live and breathe their purpose is going to be something that people are going to have to, we'll start to look for more, because it's about differentiating, isn't it? And it's about differentiating yourself, not doing it in a way that looks contrived, but in a way that's genuine. And I think the organizations and the companies that have leaders that are doing that are probably the ones that will be able to attract the talent that they want.
Okay, final thoughts. If you could jump in the Wayback Machine and speak to yourself 20 years ago, what advice, based on what you now know about the importance of purpose in work, would you give yourself?
If I could have slightly less grey hair and fewer wrinkles, that would be good to start with. But it would be about staying true, I think, to yourself, and being confident in your own ethics and purpose. And I think I've learned along the way, and maybe it's partly from being female and, you know, working in largely male-dominated environments, but sometimes as I've worked my way through my career, especially when I was younger, you know, feeling that I had to change and mirror my behaviours to be like the people that I'm working with. And I don't think well, I know actually, you don't have to do that. You know, as I've got older, you know, you become more comfortable in your own skin. And I think I still get imposter syndrome these days. You know, it's not something that ever goes away. And I think having a bit of imposter syndrome is a little bit healthy, because it stops you from getting a bit too cocky. But I think you've just always got to dig deep. Remember who you are, remember why you do what you do, you know, all of that stuff. Just really have confidence in yourself, because particularly as a female, it's tough working your way through a career, and it's tough because it doesn't come naturally. A lot of these expectations and how you know, the way others behave around you, for example. So just be yourself, be true to yourself, and you'll rise to the top.
Wow, what a close. Fantastic. Dawn, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Thanks for sharing your passion, your knowledge, and of course, your purpose. I hope you, dear viewer or listener, have enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. Please do look out for the other episodes in this podcast series, where I'll be joined by other special guests to discuss those other topics from our salary survey research: diversity in the workplace, the impact of globalisation, and the changing shape of reward. Visit www.mbnsolutions.com to register for your copy of our UK Data Salary Survey 2022, and follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter for the latest news, views, opinions, and of course, hottest opportunities in the data space. Goodbye.